You went black for a minute.
Yeah, I am, yeah.
It's the polarization between comfort versus courage.
Okay.
You know, I mean, you know, we all enjoy comfort, but we know that growth doesn't come out of comfort.
Yeah, but go a bit more. Are you thinking about also taking risks? Is that
Well,
part of the?
Well, I suppose that's one way of looking at it. I mean, but I think it's also courage is more about non-avoidance, you know, so that if you're feeling discomfort, it's about being awake to it, to say, okay, so why am I feeling this way? Am I feeling threatened? Am I scared? Am I, you know, what's the underlying emotion there? Rather than trying to scurry back into a comfortable position.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, so I think that, you know, when you think about it in a broad sense, I mean, you know, the whole idea of life is it is what shows up each day. So if you're awake enough to be alert to what is showing up each day, and at the same time, you know, simultaneously be alert to how you are, you know, responding or engaging with what is showing up, then, you know, that's the recipe of life. But unfortunately, I think there are some in the community whose idea of success or well-being is around how comfortable they are.
Okay, but you know, if something crops up in your daily life, you've got to make a decision. Okay, so what you're saying, you know, have you got the courage to first of all make that decision? If that decision means change, to take a step forward, and possibly that change means possibly taking a risk.
Well, I mean, absolutely, because I mean, I think that, you know, if one of the first things you say to yourself is, well, I don't know what the outcome is going to be,
yeah,
then that requires courage.
Yeah, but do you think stupidity might come into it? Why take that step forward when you've got what you know and the comfort zone? That doesn't mean you have to take that risk or take that challenge.
Yeah, well, I suppose if you look through human history, you know, you think about those early explorers who would jump onto a ship and not really know where they're going to end up.
Yes.
I mean, is that stupid or is that courageous? You know, so
courage, sure, sure.
It's a quest to know, isn't it? You know, so
yeah.
which again, if you sort of keep on going back and say, okay, well, what's the foundation that's standing on? It does come back to that. Okay, well, what was their intention? Their intention wasn't to be reckless and stupid. Their intention was to go out and discover the new world. And you know, without being as dramatic as that, you know, if we apply a similar sort of principle in our life, is, well, whatever's showing up today, you know, is, well, what's my intention? Does the Plumstead methodology, like what's the why behind it? And what's my intention? Is my intention to preserve my level of comfort, or is my intention to fully experience, you know, this life?
Yeah, I agree with you.
They're big questions, and I think that's, you know, I suppose another example or another way to sort of look at the context is we can look at people and be judgmental of them, or we can look at people and blame them, and we can look at people and do all of those sorts of things, which is an outbound activity. But if the invitation through increased awareness is also to look inwardly, that may well result in a significant shift. So instead of looking outbound and saying, you know, that person has wronged me, you know, I blame them for how I feel. If you flip that around and have a look at it from an internal perspective, you know, your outlook may shift to one of compassion and empathy.
Yeah.
and personal responsibility, and perhaps change behaviour on my part. So.
Yeah, I agree with you. I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how many organisations have you worked in where the culture is one of fix the blame fast?
Yeah.
10 plates your backside.
So. Yes. Yeah. I'm looking at the one that I have been working for the last 2 years, and I've shared all that with you, and it's quite interesting. But you seem to work for quite a authentic company.
Yeah, I think they are on the whole, but I think authenticity is a daily challenge, isn't it? I mean, you can become inauthentic very quickly. And I think it's something that requires a very strong intention and a lot of focus and energy put into it. That even in the tough times, these things are really important to us, and we won't, cut people out of it or whatever, just to save a few dollars. So. And I think that the whole idea of authentic and integrity is something that needs a lot of contemplation, because they're words that get bandied around very quickly. But I mean, if you were sitting in front of them, just pose the question, well, tell me what you mean by that. It would be interesting to see how spontaneous the answer would come. So.
Yeah, but that's where your word courage comes in too, you see. In order to be authentic, or to,
requires
maintain
honesty.
your integrity.
Yeah, it requires an honesty, doesn't it, to have those conversations.
But to continue being honest, it could require courage. Okay. And the old saying that a little white lie doesn't hurt anybody. Okay. And maybe that's an escape mechanism back to the comfort zone.
I think it is. Like I've some of the books I've sort of been reading in recent times, as an aside, not in terms of the mainstream story, but some of these forest monks, for example, like a family member might say to them, "Oh, come and have a drink with me," and they sort of say, well, there's one book in particular comes to mind. He says, "No, I can't, because that's something that I've made some vows on." And the family member says, "Yeah, but no one will know." He says, "Well, yes, I'll know." And it's that sort of honesty, isn't it? So
and courage. To stand up for what and you stand up for it. Why? Okay. I mean, why do you stand up for it? Who's benefiting? Are you benefiting by standing up to it, and how are you benefiting? So why must you have the courage to maintain your integrity? I guess the answer is a spiritual answer, is that the law will come back and slap you in the face. Okay.
Well, even in a more, I agree with you, and I think even in a more fundamental sense, though, is that essentially that's what integrity is that doing it, whether someone is there to notice whether you're doing it or not. So.
Yeah, it's for yourself.
Yeah. It's sort of potentially hypocritical to say I do it when I'm around others, but when I'm by myself, it's happy days.
I agree.
Yeah.
But you got to know why you do it for yourself. Okay. When nobody's around.
Yeah.
Okay. And nobody knows. Okay. And I think that's the basis of the law of this third dimension that we're in. Okay. Yeah.
And I think too, ultimately, like for people who've explored contexts like you and I have is, when it comes down to, what is the truth and what's important, then, it becomes obvious, doesn't it? So.
Well, what becomes obvious?
It's to what decisions you make.
Because you have a basis, a morality basis.
Well, you have a reference point, yeah.
Yeah, reference point. Good word. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But those who don't know why will probably slip up often, because if you don't have a why, then you have nothing. It's all show. Yeah.
I mean, and it's something that, you probably don't even give a moment's thought to it. But for example, when you had that abscess on your gum, that's not an excuse to be rude and angry towards other people.
Sure.
You may find it easy to be rude and angry to someone else because your tolerance level is wafer thin, but it's not an excuse, is it? So.
Yeah. A lot of thoughts when you talk about that pain on yes, I use clover oil, but I also resorted to painkillers as well before I realized that the clover oil was going to do everything for me. But I didn't know that at the start. I'd forgotten about clover oil. I'd never had to use it, so I didn't. My mother used to use it. And I'd never in my life used it. And
where'd you get it from?
Well, you get it from the pharmacy. You get it from any place. You can get it. Yeah, it's all over the place. It's a tiny little bottle, and of oil, and you dare not take too much. So you put an earbud and you drop some drops on it, and that's enough to absolutely, and I mean absolutely, take the pain away and numb that area. Okay. And the funny thing I found about that was when you put it in your mouth and you want to make sure that you've got enough there so that it takes the pain away, and then some of it drips down and you swallow it. Okay. Which is no harm. It's not poisonous or anything, but whatever it touches down in your throat goes numb.
Oh, right.
Okay. Yeah, so now you're coughing as if you've got something stuck in your throat. So you try and balance. But this is all experience. I didn't learn this from anywhere. I couldn't research it. And it was Sue that reminded me about this oil, because she'd used it in her life. Okay. I just hadn't. So she spoke from experience. And so while I was still getting to that point where she reminded me about it, I was taking painkillers, and then once you realize that, then you now, I say to myself, supporting pharmaceuticals, okay. But yeah, I think I've never taken a priority of never using pharmaceuticals. Okay.
No.
That's never been one part of my thing. I've just tried to avoid them wherever possible and take the natural route rather than focusing on symptoms like the pain, trying to get to the cause. And that would be, what I've done historically. And but this was a wake-up call in a lot of areas, and it comes back to some of what you were saying in a moment ago, and that is, today I said to Sue over a meal, I said, high blood sugars, the peripheral artery disease, okay, with a lot of pain, okay, and high blood sugars also cause pain in different areas. Some symptoms become issues, and then I got the toothache pain. Then I got the gum abscess pain. You know, what is opening up for me? You know, at this moment, at this cycle, and I don't know. Okay, I jokingly said to Sue today that you know, maybe it's God saying, "God, man, I've been trying to show you a direction and you just won't take it." So bang, bang, bang. You know, wake up, boy.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, yeah.
But the fact that you even just posed that question, even though, you know, whether it was jokingly or not, it just demonstrates you've got a level of awareness that you can even think in that context. You know. So.
True.
You know, which is important. You know, to sort of say, well, you know, what am I missing here? You know, so.
And of course, you then ask my question: why am I getting this pain? Okay. You know, what is it? You know, what am I missing? And,
well, I was thinking about a similar sort of question this morning when I was out walking the dog. I was thinking, you know, well, what is actually forgiveness? What does that actually mean? And I think a big part of forgiveness is actually acceptance, and then the ability to let it go.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like people use the word, you know, I forgive you, but I think the act of forgiving someone is an internal process of one of acceptance. You know, and that does take courage.
Yeah, it absolutely does. I think it's really an interesting subject you brought up today.
I hope we're not going to run out of time, are we? I mean,
I don't know. It's you know, no, but I started the recording late, but it's already on like 39 minutes. So I think let's just see if we cut off. Let's just make contact again. Okay. Because I also want to talk about, you know, how we move forward as well.
Sure.
Yeah. So yeah, pain is an interesting phenomena, and I don't think I've ever come up with an answer to why the pain in any particular circumstances, you know. But would you think that pain has something to do with karmic issues?
Potentially. It's an interesting topic because pain, in one sense, is almost a bit like heat or cold and those sort of sensations, isn't it? You know, they are things that, with practice, that you can notice and you can even lean into, but not be entangled by. And I think that the ability to do that at that level enables you to see some of the underlying, you know, causes of it, perhaps, you know. So, so I mean, at the risk of sort of oversimplifying, I think pain is an invitation to look deeper. You know, whether it's a physical looking deeper at, don't put your hand on that hot surface, or pull that prickle out of your foot, or, you know, change the food that you're eating, or, you know, slow down or speed up, or, you know, any of those sort of things, you know.
So the mere fact that you're asking the question to yourself, then the answer is going to be, you're going to be confronted with an answer.
If you're confronted, I think if you're open to the inquiry, and it's almost, like the question is almost like, so what am I not seeing here? Then I think answers more readily come forward if you're authentically asking that question about, well, what do I need to see here? What do I need to learn from this? Then, God, what are you doing to me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and why are you doing it to me? So, but the answer could come, and thinking back to what you said a moment ago, the day brings certain circumstances, and maybe the answer is in those circumstances. Okay.
For sure. And I think an important sort of intention that it needs to underpin a lot of it too is the idea of, I take responsibility for what's ever turning up. And that's not about blame. That's just saying, whatever shows up, I take personal responsibility for it, and I engage with it as, do what needs to be done.
Right. Yeah. And don't deny it before considering it.
For sure. Yeah. Have that level of openness, because the more I've explored the idea of awareness, it's all of those things. Awareness is not just, I'm open to it. No, it's not. It's about responsibility. It's about honesty. It's about looking deeply. It's about being curious. It's about all of those things,
So how would you do that, in your opinion? All the words you've used relating to awareness. Okay, so what would you something, you're confronted with something, so now you perhaps aware of something. Now
I think so. And even if you're not aware of it in an overt sense, but you are generally aware of some form of discomfort, whether it's pain or whether it's, you have a strong opinion about, a particular topic or something like that. It's having the willingness to sort of say, now, why do I hold that opinion? And is that opinion driven by an outbound perspective, or is it driven by an internal perspective, and just asking yourself those sort of questions, really just walking around these issues and say, there's that fundamental, like, so why? Like, why? What do I need to see here? What am I not seeing here? What am I blind to? What's the predominant energy around this? Is it one of poor me? Am I a victim? And if that's the energy, then why do I feel that way?
Yeah.
And it's not about right or wrong. It's just about, so what's going on here?
Yeah. It's not about right and wrong. You're quite right. Okay. And so, yeah, and as you said earlier, not to put blame on anybody. Okay?
No, it's about responsibility. It's the other end of the spectrum.
It's about your responsibility. You've been confronted with something personally. Okay, it's like your destination. It's what's happening to you today. Okay, yeah.
I mean, and like, it's a clumsy example, but you could literally be walking down the street, and someone falls out of a pub rolling drunk and hits their head on the pavement. What do? Walk around them? Or do you say, well, this is just rolled up in front of me right here? Yeah. This stupid person, they shouldn't be drinking, rah, rah, rah. Or is it, goodness, what do I do now?
And you make a decision.
Yeah, what's my responsibility in this?
Yeah.
Not one of that stupid fool, or they got what they deserved, or
Yeah.
any of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Because that first dialogue which comes up in our head, both you and I know that you can't rely on it because it doesn't tell the truth.
Yeah. It makes me think of something that we were confronted with last week and again this week on our walk. We've got a little, at the end of the street, like a little parking area. 3 or 4 cars get parked. It's sort of up against the forest and the park. And people come there at night time in a car, and they smoke and vape, and then they have their takeaways, and then everything gets tossed out the window into the car park. Okay, everything. Okay, even the little vaping capsules and boxes of their takeaways and everything. Okay, and now we walk past there. Okay, every single day, and so you're confronted with this question. Okay, and I like the beautiful, clean place we walk. So do we pick it up? Okay, without passing any judgment and throw it away? Okay, or do we just walk past it? Okay, that's a decision because
it's a good example.
So we on a number of occasions we've picked up everything, and even it was a smashed bottle. We pick up the pieces and put it there and bring the area back to some sort of beauty.
Because if you don't, I mean, it just gets worse and worse and worse, doesn't it? It just,
Yeah, yes, it would. Okay. I don't know how often, in fact, I've never seen anybody walking around cleaning up, but I'm sure they do. Okay. And it's just that, I don't see them. But, it's what you said. It's what you're confronted with right now. Okay.
And
so
and that's, like the voice will say, but I didn't put it there. But then when you reflect on it, after 2 further moments, you think, yes, but I don't like it there. So what am I going to do about it?
But, and the thinking goes more. It's like you were saying with your social distancing, the not touching handrails. If I touch that, maybe I get a virus. Okay. And what do I go back now and put gloves on and come here? No, I just clean up. Okay.
And you don't need to make it mean anything more than just that.
Yeah, just cleaning up and so that everybody can enjoy walking past that area
safely, and has the right energy and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So what else is on your mind? What else do you want to talk about?
I haven't. We haven't spoken for quite a while, and so my thinking has been all the whys, not only the pain and so on, and that, but that it coincides with the dramatic reduction in my workload and income. You ask the question why as well, you see. And you say, well, do I forcefully go out and do something about it? Or do I watch day by day to see how things unfold? Okay. And so those are interesting for oneself in the predicament that we're in, or I'm in. Okay. To think, well, So every day, in a way, I make those sort of ask the questions, and I take some sort of action, as you know, because I shared it in the last number of weeks with you, what I'm doing. But it's interesting what we're saying tonight is that something comes up on a daily basis. They are confronted with things, and you've got to make a decision. Okay. And last week, what came up was, Jan offered me some work. Okay. And so, do I take it? Don't I take it? Of course I take it, because it's part of my skill set, okay, to do what he wants done. Just that I'd never thought of doing that again, okay, and that's like a new avenue. So, the way you confront it, the way I confronted it maybe was, thank you, God, okay, I'm grateful for this, okay, thanks for Jan being around, and I put my all into it, okay, and then out of the blue, I got Get Set Up, put out an email saying they starting an additional sector called Get Set Up Services. Okay, and what Get Set Up Services is that guides can now do one-on-one training. Okay.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Okay. You can go with a maximum of 4 people at the time, but basically it's one-on-one training, and the guide sets the price. Okay, and they take 30%. You keep 70%. Okay, they market it and have the platform, but they will market it as well. And I thought, now that's interesting. First of all, I sort of felt scared. Okay, here was something that I was confronted with. It's been very recent, and I thought, no, this isn't it? And I thought, hey, I didn't ask for this. It's something that's come up, and a general email went out. I've read it, and yes, let's try.
So your first instinct was run for comfort. But
yes.
But when you thought about it a little bit more, you thought, no, I'm going to be courageous in this.
Yes, in that, definitely. You're spot on. But there were other thoughts too, okay, and thoughts, the type of thoughts that we've been talking about. I was saying, do I want to build onto Get Set Up? Do I trust them? Okay. Do I enjoy working for them? Do I like the way that they interact and communicate? Okay. The answer is no. Okay. But I'm judgmental now from my experience, and I feel I can be justified critically, but no, you can never justify being criticizing. Okay.
But the flip side of that coin, though, is you also know that you have a following within that Get Set Up community, and hi,
yeah,
what's the opportunity too, So
yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of positive that has come out of all that. About 30 people have contacted me via email. Okay, and so I'm now, on a regular basis, doing one-on-one emails to these people, talking to them, just chatting. Okay, building a relationship that I never had before.
So in terms of a practical nuts and bolts thing, then in the context of your circumstances, what do you think you would need to charge, and for how many, to put you back where you were before, for example? So.
Yeah. Well, let me take you through my thinking process. When I decided, because all they wanted to know whether you had an interest or not, and then to fill out a form based on what your interest is. Sorry, let me just take some water. So, I mean, without any thinking other than what I've discussed with you about what I would do, I thought, well, what came to my mind was microgreens, okay? And I then filled out the form, and I said, you know, teaching people microgreens, okay? And I sent it off, and along with about, I think in total, 16 guides responded, okay? And so, but then I slept on it, you know, and I then attended a meeting at 1 a.m. The day before yesterday, okay? And it was the first meeting. It was, remember, it's really all geared for American guides. So, you know, it's I was the only one sort of outside of America, and it wasn't aimed at the Indian guides. It was all. And anyway, so I got up at 1 o'clock and I listened to it, and I now became more knowledgeable about what they wanted, and I realized that I didn't want to do microgreens. Okay, why? Is because I'm not a professional microgreen grower. Okay, I'm not knowledgeable to the extent that they want these one-on-ones to be. Okay, and I thought absolutely not. I often foul up with my microgreens because of lack of knowledge. Okay, so it's like, you know, me trial and error, just try, and then, you know, it works for me, and I don't mind sharing that in a class of 20 people, and going through the steps, as it were. Okay.
But if someone's coming to you looking for specific advice and instruction, then you're right.
Yeah, and without a doubt, questions and answers. Okay, you know, they may be doing microgreens now. They want questions. I'm not qualified to answer, you know, those detailed things that I haven't been exposed to, perhaps. Okay, and then what they're paying me for. So, so anyway, I immediately sent an email saying, not microgreens. Okay, but listening to your meeting, you know, my professionalism lies in mentoring, business mentoring. Okay, and I would be very happy to do business mentoring for people who are in an existing business. Okay, okay, and then I sent that off, and he sent me an email, and we've got a meeting early tomorrow morning where we're going to discuss it. And his email reply was, well, don't throw away the microgreens yet. You know, let me discuss it with you. Okay, this is a new fellow on the block. Okay, and he's got an appropriate background for this. Okay, and he said, but I like your idea of mentoring. Okay, and then I had more thoughts about it, and I thought, you know, I told you that Jan has asked me to do some work for him, and what he's asked me to do is to write blogs and emails, because his job is generating leads for businesses. Okay, he's like a consultant. Okay, and so I've got to research how to do that in order to give people valuable information with his emails. So he sees himself. So I thought, you know, maybe I can take the mentoring into that particular avenue. Okay, and say, you know, I'll mentor you if you're in business, existing business, on how to generate leads. Okay, and you know, basically in 2022, which is online and things. And so I thought, you know, yeah, I could niche that, and maybe I could myself, besides, you know, Jan asking me to do it, and then perhaps doing it for a class with Get Set Up, maybe that's my business I should be. Maybe that's what God is saying, okay, is bringing these things on thrown at me, because I've been asking why, I've been saying, what do I do? How do I move forward? Okay, and these things are coming at me, okay. So as we were saying earlier in the conversation, it's not to block it down, okay. It's not to negate it. It's just to be open to it and allow it to flow. So like I'm doing now with Get Set Up, let's try. Now, to answer your question, what we charge, there's a minimum charge that Get Set Up has laid down, okay, which is pretty low, okay. It's basically $40 an hour, okay, for a one-on-one, okay. But the other guides in the meeting, they're all professionals, and they're all doing various things in their own practice, in their own business. None of them have used Get Set Up as a full-time income, because the one actually expressed it so well. He says, I could never live off Get Set Up. It's pittance that they pay, okay, for a class. Okay? He says, I charge my clients, the one guy said, 100 Rand an hour, and the one woman said, well, I do 4 classes for $500. Okay, that's in the private life. So one's looking at pricing it around that sort of going rate, somewhere between 40 and 100 maybe. Okay, and
well, I think the more fundamental issue for you though is not so much about what's the market rate. It's more about what do I need.
Yeah.
What do I need to be comfortable? And that becomes your base.
Yeah, but my need will depend on how many people I teach in any given month. Okay.
Oh no, I think you've tripped over that one. I think the issue is it doesn't matter whether it comes from one person or 20 people. It's what do I need out of this based on the time and effort that I put into it. Yeah. So if you say I'm looking for a weekly income of $600, $800, whatever the number is.
Yeah.
And then you say, well, what does that represent? Well, it might represent, 8 classes at $100, or it might represent 16 classes at $50.
I see what you mean. I see what you mean. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Or a mix, So, and you're absolutely right. It's going to be tailored to what my customer needs, because that's the offering you can do. You can offer a bespoke offering based on an individual customer's needs. Now, one customer's needs might represent $300 a week or whatever.
Yeah.
Another customer's needs might represent $40 an hour for 2 hours.
Right.
But that's the other dynamic is rather just going out there saying, this is my rate, take it or leave it. It's the question, the more appropriate question is what is your need and how can I help you?
Yeah. Thanks for that.
Because I think that's one of the byproducts of consumerism is how much is it?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not selling you a price. I'm working with you to deliver a solution. And I'm either going to be of value to you or not of value to you. And it's a conversation, I think, What do you need me to do? Well, this is what I need you to do. Okay, well, for me to spend that sort of time and research and and phone calls, and it might be at 1 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning, then for me, that's going to represent, whatever the number is.
Yeah.
And that's an honest, integrous sort of conversation is what's your needs, and you understand what my needs are, and let's see if there's a,
Yeah.
It's like the typical sales process, how much is it? How much you're prepared to pay.
Yeah.
How much is that boat? Well, that depends what you're prepared to pay for it.
So. Yeah, absolutely spot on. Yeah.
But I think the idea that you've outlined though is, God, it just screams you. Like that's exactly what you represent. So yeah.
So it's interesting in the context of our conversation of how things you're confronted with on a daily basis if you ask the questions.
And that's what it always comes down to, doesn't it? I mean, it seems trite to say, but am I asking the right question?
Yeah. Yes.
Am I asking the right question? Because because if the only tool in your toolkit is a hammer, guess what? Everything looks like a nail. So.
Said by a carpenter.
You know what I mean, mate.
I know what you mean. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's to answer your question. That's how it's moving forward, and it's so there's a, but through all this, Don, has been and I've expressed it from time to time with Sue, is that deep down, really right down, even when I had pain in my legs and my mouth and so on, and had issues with the employer, deep down, I there's almost an excitement of knowing that things are going to be all right.
Of course.
That makes absolutely. It's a feeling, and absolutely, it's a genuine feeling. Okay.
Well, it's more than a feeling. It's a direct connection.
It's a knowing. Yeah.
It's a direct connection with the integrity of God. It's just knowing, that everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And it's a knowing that's not, I hope it is. It's a knowing that is, I know. It's an absolute confidence. I know everything's going to be okay. I don't know what the answers are. I don't know the how. I don't know the why. I don't know so many things. I don't know. I actually don't know much at all. But one thing I do know is everything's going to be okay.
So, yeah, spot on. Absolutely. Yeah, and that's exactly what I've been feeling, and it's kept me like I don't know, happy is the right word, but there's a joy there. Okay,
Absolutely.
It's almost like an unconditional joy. It's not conditioned to anything. Okay, it's just sitting there. Okay,
but it then energizes you to have this openness and have this inquiry and have this preparedness to try and see what is,
Yeah, and to look at everything.
Yeah. Because as you say, when the opportunity plops itself down in front of you and says, hey, here I am.
Yeah.
Then that's when it's time to jump into action and go and do it, so.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's quite an interesting cycle in my life. Okay.
Well, new beginnings. You knew it was all new beginnings, So.
Yeah, absolutely. I know, absolutely. Yeah.
And it's very easy for people to say, in hindsight, it was the best thing that happened to me, even though it seemed like hell at the time. But I think the learning out of that, well, for me anyway, is to be constantly asking myself, am I open? What am I not seeing here? What do I need to learn here? What am I not? What do I don't know here? Like it's
right.
It's that constant. It's not taking things for granted. It's not assuming, because all of these nice little tidy sayings that we've vomited out of our mouths over the years around, like, oh, it's a fresh new day, it's a new beginning, this too will pass. Yeah. Well, but what does that really mean? Yeah. What does that really mean? Like really walking up to it. it's about being, having integrity. Yeah, well, what is that? Tell me what
Yeah.
that actually looks like.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
that sort of honesty, isn't it? It's that
Absolutely.
open.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. I'm going to stop recording now, and we can carry on talking. All right?
Yeah, sure.
You agree?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay.